Hi. Today I'd like to share with you a book that I read recently that had a transformative change in how I approach life. It's called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Now, if any of you have had the pleasure of seeing Jocko Willink on the internet, you'll know that he is a very large, very opinionated man who has a presence about him. He and Leif Babin are former Navy SEALs. They served in the war in Iraq and specifically in the Battle of Ramadi. And they took these lessons that they learned in the war as leaders. And when they got home, they turned it into a powerhouse of a leadership training program. So the book is outlined in a very structured manner, which you would expect from former military men. It has a situation in the war that they dealt with, and then it explains the lessons that they learned, and then it explains how that can translate over into leadership. And the basis of the book is that good leaders do not look for someone to blame when things go wrong. They call it extreme ownership. The idea is that a good leader is always focused on the mission, what they're trying to accomplish. Now, in war, they had different objectives, but from a business perspective, what is the focus of the business? What is the mission of the business? And in any leadership situation, the leader of the company or the leader of the group takes full responsibility, extreme ownership of leading their team to achieve that goal. And this can reach the point where if someone messes up during an operation in battle, for example, and there's a miscommunication, the leader of the operation says, I didn't explain what needed to happen to my team well enough. I didn't give them enough training. I didn't let them know why they needed to communicate. It's a complete change of circumstance that I experienced in corporate America, where you're always looking to cover your butt, right? CYA. And you're always looking to make sure that, the guy who just left to another company or the guy who just got fired, everything was his fault that went bad. Very, 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 very common. And it turns out that when I read this book, which was intended to be a book on leadership and how to be a good leader, I realized that the principles that are taught are not just about leadership, but about life. If you want to be a good leader, or if you want to be a good team member, or if you want to be a good participant in any activity with another person where you're trying to achieve a common goal, the principles taught in extreme ownership are principles you want to read about. I've realized that in my own life, I had a circumstance at work where we were rolling out some new software and it was fundamentally changing the way we did business. Humans are resistant to change. That's just the way we are. And one of my coworkers was having a hard time transitioning from what we used to do to what we currently were doing. And me, as the leader responsible for rolling out this new software package, would go to each person, would try to train them, work with them, and find out what they needed. And for this person I was working with who was having a hard time with the software adjustment, yeah, we would have some conversations and they wouldn't really go very well. I wouldn't say they got heated, but they weren't very effective. She was talking to me, I was talking to her, and it just didn't work. And so this happened a couple of times. Took a step back, and after reading the book, realized that this was my fault. I had not explained what needed to happen with the software. I had not adequately explained why the software would help us be more effective. I had not adequately addressed how this new software would help us be more efficient, would help us close more business. But ultimately, our goal as a company is to provide fantastic customer service. And that is a shared goal that everyone on the team has. And so, this principle taught in extreme ownership, always focusing on the mission and always looking at yourself. What can I do better? What can I do differently to make the mission happen and to make sure that our team is always moving forward? Was a fantastic principle. And it goes even a little further than that. I mentioned earlier in the video, if you're with more than one group of humans, right? So let me say that again. If you and another person are trying to accomplish something together, the principles of extreme ownership apply. In my case, I thought family, right? A husband and a wife are together as a group and a unit, and their goal is one another's happiness. Their goal is to provide for each other, maybe children, and for their family to move forward, progress, do better, be good members of society. Whatever a particular family's goals might be. And by taking extreme ownership of that goal as a family member, that changes the whole dynamic of whether or not you're going to have an argument with someone about the way something happens or something like that. I haven't explained myself well enough. I haven't understood their point of view well enough. I need to change myself. And that's why I think this book, Extreme Ownership, should be read by everyone who wants to be a more effective team member, who wants to be a more effective leader in whatever capacity. But it's a great example of how we as humans can change what we do. We can change how we think, we can change how we react, but we really can't change how other people react or how other people do things. Now, we can influence people, and we do, sometimes for better or worse. Sometimes we influence them more or less. But at the end of the day, it's up to us to do what we can to effectively communicate. So, The Principles of Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Great book, highly recommended. I would say it's probably one of the top 5 books that anyone everywhere should have to read. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you in the next video.